and welcome to Enigmatic Rose 4's tutorial on Crusader Kings 2. This is on selecting a character to play. So if you've watched the previous videos, you know how to choose the year you want to play in, and you know how the different levels work in the game. Here we're going to take a look at what you want to choose for your character. So some things to keep in mind with your character are what government you want to go with. If you look here at your map mode, you can select governments up here. So the most basic one in Crusader Kings 2 is feudal. This is the traditional one. This is the one that was in the basic game. This is what we think of when we think of the Middle Ages. You've got your lord in your castle, and he's got people under him, and they give him troops, and they give him some taxes, and he keeps them safe. Alright, that's the most basic kind. After that, we have tribal, which tribal's a little more complex. It's a little harder to hold on to land because there's a lot more restrictions on you, but you also get some very good bonuses in terms of taking over land. It's just harder to hold on to. This was added with, I believe it was it was after the Old Gods expansion. I forgot when they added this one, but they added it at some point. But it changes things up a little bit. And then we have Nomadic People, which are the Horse Lords. It came with the Horse Lords expansion pack. We have Monastic Feudal. These came with the Jade Dragon expansion pack. India is feudal, but things works fairly similar to how they do in Europe in terms of inheritance and laws and what's allowed. We have the Ikta. I can't pronounce that. I'm terrible at pronouncing things that are not English. Unless it's Korean or German, then I do okay, but I'm not the best. So they are the Muslim countries, which can also still be tribal, but is not, this is what they turn into Ikta. And the Ikta have their own set of rules. They're similar to feudal, but not the same. And we'll have to do a video on each one on how each one is truly different. But this is something to remember when you're picking your character. And then the last choice that you can actually play are merchant republics here. And they work entirely differently. This is one of the few where you don't have to control a county to be still playing in the game, because you can play as any of these guys. And as you can tell by their brown circle, they are not a count or higher. But that's a whole nother set of rules. So you can play as any of them as long as you have the correct expansion packs. The Merchant Republics come with the Republic DLC. The one type of holding or government you cannot play as is a theocracy. If you see I click on Mr. Pope Man here, I cannot allowed to play theocracies. You just cannot play them. And part of that is because this game is about playing a family and trying to get your family power, while a theocracy, while they did have some things in the Middle Ages where families would run things for a while, like the Borgias and other families, they cannot pass on land in the traditional sense or titles. So, once you have that decided, you can look at your cultures. There's lots of cultures in the game, and they change depending on your time period. Here we have Visigothic, Frankish, German, Lombard, Italian. But if we jump all the way to, let's go 1241 and take a look at our title. Oh yeah, and there's Anglo-Saxon up here in England, and Pictish up there in Scotland. Only Irish is Irish. But now we have English as Scottish. We have Castilian. We have Italian, no more Lombard. Russian, Danish. Things change as, cultural groups move and people identify as different groups. And then we have religion to look at. Oh, sorry, one more thing about the cultures is that each culture has different rules attached to it sometimes in terms of what they can do. Like, one of the easiest ones to remember is that Basque, they have more freedom when it comes to women inheriting laws than other cultures. That's just because the way they are. Or some rules of inheritance are different, like the Irish, well, he's English, he's in charge, but that's an Irish county. There we go. He's Irish. Or Welsh, they can do a form of inheritance called tanistry, which you can see showcased in my Ladies Violin playthrough, and we'll also do a video on that in a later episode. So you can look at that. You also look at religions. So if you are playing the base game, you can play as Catholic. I think you can play as Orthodox too, but don't quote me on that. There's also Catholic heresies like the Cathar down here. If you have the Sword of Islam, you can play as Sunni or Shia. Wherever some Shia are, there's no Shia on this map anymore, but you can play as any Muslim. If you have Old Gods, you can play as Sumenisco, Tengri, Romuva. There's no more Germanic, but there was Germanic in an earlier era. And if you want to play as Jewish, you can do that with the Sons of Abraham. If you want to play as Buddhist, Jain, or Hindu, I believe you can do that with the Rajas of India. Jade Dragon might also allow you to have it, even if you don't have Rajas of India. I'm not 100% on that. I'd probably have to turn off the DLC and take a look. Alright, so we are here, and once you've decided that, let's say we want to play as a Welsh, or not Welsh, let's do Breton. We want to be a Breton and religious Catholic, okay, and we want to be feudal. Good, they're all feudal. And we're going to be a count. Here's where you have to decide, do you want to be a count? Do you want to be a duke? Or a king? Sometimes you can't do that if you want to be Breton, because like, oh, that's Breton land, I can click here. But the king is actually Anglo-Saxon Catholic. So you go back and you're like, oh, maybe I'll be a duke. I'll be the Duke of Breton here. There he is. So you can tell he's independent. That means he has no liege lord above him, but he does have vassals under him. There's his culture. There's his religion. He's Breton. He's Catholic. And here you can see his difficulty. He's rated as relatively hard, and it tells you why. The base score is 50% with normal difficulty. I'm assuming this change lowers or raises if you go into options and change your difficulty level. He has 3 vassals, so it's minus 3% because vassals do help you, and they are very good. Vassals are important. You can't control everything in the game yourself. It gets too much, and it actually does hurt you over time. But he does have a small dynasty. It means he doesn't have too many family members, and if you get hit with some plague, or someone takes an offense to you and starts murdering your entire family, well, you could die out fairly quickly. Having a small dynasty is not a very good thing. So another thing to know is if we hover over him, we can see his age. He's 33. He's going to live a good life. As long as nothing happens, he'll live for a while. And we can also see his vassals. How many vassals he has. He has 3 of them. That's cool. There's also a slot here for diplomacy, which we don't have any diplomacy going on. But if we come back out and we click on the King of England, we see he's got little flags here. And we hover over them and see that he's at war with the Duchy of Normandy, which we click on that, it takes us down here. He's also at war with the Kingdom of Norway, if we look up here. So if you start the game playing as the King of England right now, which is King Harold of Godwin, or King Harold Godwin of England, who lost England to William the Conqueror historically, then you will be in 2 wars fighting to keep your kingdom. And that's something to know if you're first joining the game. You really don't want to jump into a game that you're not comfortable with and be at war from the get-go. It makes life difficult for you. So that's things to consider once you've picked your year, once you've decided on who you want to play, is make sure they are doing the things you want. And that goes for anyone. One thing to keep in mind though is if you are starting with anyone under the age of 16, they will have a regent and you will not be able to control too much. Not too bad if you can start here as a 14-year-old, but a little more problematic if you are going to start, not here. I guess it's the one of the starts. The Kingdom of Jerusalem is ruled by a little girl. Was it 1220? Yes. She is 9. That makes it a little harder because you have more years before you actually age up. And she's also surrounded by a big giant empire, which is not a good place to be in. Another thing to keep in mind with is your gender, because most vassals just like female rulers. There's things you can do in the game in terms of technology to change that, but they still prefer you to have a male ruler and a male heir. All right, so that's the basics on choosing a character. If you have any questions, leave them down in a comment below and I will do my best to answer. Thank you so much. Y'all have a good day. Bye.